There's this dynamic going on side by side within my internal dialogue, my internal life, and my external life. Forward-facing, on social media, in films. Winters are changing. The climate is changing.
The heat domes, the heat waves.
Record for hottest day on Earth was broken again for the second day in a row.
Losing ice so fast it could flip.
This is climate change.
And I'm constantly part of the problem. I'm marketing consumer products to be bought over and over and over again. I'm flying all over the planet. I'm driving all over North America. I drive a snowmobile. I ride in helicopters. Like, I've done it. I'm living the dream. But those actions, that life, is killing the dream. By burning fossil fuels, I'm contributing to the death of the thing that I love most. I have to really ask myself, am I doing enough? Or is it about relieving this guilt?
This is a David and Goliath story because the fossil fuel industry is incredibly powerful and incredibly rich. We really have power in our hands, but we often don't use the power that we have. And so one of the key choices that all of us face right now is, what can we do to change this world?
Ready to get some gasoline fumes in their eyeballs? Yeah, we'll give her a whirl. Let's make sure she goes before we hit the road. First pull. She's ready. It's just like a freedom. Like you're on, it's actually like I've never gotten to ride a horse off into the sunset, but to me it is like my own horse that I'm like chasing off into the mountains, finding pow. It's different than any other ski experience I've ever had. So it's like going back 3, 4, 5 years when like I first started having this feeling, this inkling, this voice that kept creeping up saying that like, you are the problem. You're not just part of the problem. You are at the front of the problem. I had these two lives like diverging from each other while I'm trying to become a climate advocate, while at the same time I'm falling in love with snowmobiling. And for a long time, I felt like I had to keep that like secret. I started feeling like, okay, if I'm gonna post something about voting or about the climate, well, I better wait a few posts before posting anything about my sled. I absolutely like was a hypocrite.
Snowmobiling for me is a love-hate relationship.
I remember the day I told them I was gonna buy a snowmobile, and they was like, oh, they're so noisy, they're so smoky, they're so stinky, like.
I prefer the foot-powered approach for so many reasons. But if you want to be a professional skier, snowboarder in this area and get the best content you can, snowmobile is like an essential tool.
It's hard to come to the table being a sledder because I know I'm burning gas for fun, and I know I could be better.
I love the access it gives me. I love to be able to get to areas that I could not get to otherwise and get to snowboard these lines that are really hard to get to. But at the same time, I really dislike the smell. I dislike the noise. I don't like to disrupt the wildlife.
It's a selfish thought to not be able to give it up for our planet. But on the other side, it's a life that will lack far too much for me to give up.
It's such a touchy subject I don't know. I'm extremely fortunate to be a professional athlete doing what I do, but I feel conflicted with, I guess, my personal carbon footprint. There's a lot of haters that are seeing right through our professional athlete bullshit.
Climate action falls in line with identity politics. Nobody's questioning my calls in the mountains or my approach or what have you, but you step out of your lane and you definitely hear the critics. I mean, the only reason why the outdoor industry does not wield more power is because their customer base is divided. And they are afraid of a bad comment or upsetting a customer. But there will be no customer to ride your chairlift if we don't have snow. The community is really strong, and we just need to instill that to be a member of this community, you also should preserve the long-term health of this community.
I'm Duncan Lee, and I'm from Lake Tahoe. And I'm technically a professional snowmobiler, but more so these days I'm a avalanche educator for the motorized community.
Then you just tilt it back and tap. I think it's been really easy for people not to like us. And yeah, they're loud. That's part of the game. Unfortunately, a lot of people just have the wrong idea.
I feel like I had this preconceived notion of what this snowmobile community was going to be like, but just I couldn't believe immediately the interactions at the trailhead, in the field, the community of camaraderie and help.
For most of us, I think, when there's high tension locations at trailheads and people are already stink-eyeing us and oh, you're ruining the experience. It's well, I'm just trying to get my experience too. And how can I help you with yours?
And so when you start getting down to this nitty-gritty of who's fucking up the environment more, I think that that's just so beside the point. These kind of people are the people we want on our team when we're up against big challenges.
Snowmobilers are spending millions of dollars on registration. That privilege to access public lands, that money goes a long way, and I think there's some respect to be had for the snowmobile community. If you love something, you kind of have to pay into it, and you have to maintain that access and protect it.
Us, the motorized user, are low-hanging fruit. You can point fingers because they're loud. We're at trailheads. People don't like us. It just seems that way, and I think that for them, they're doing the right thing by protecting the environment and closing out motors.
The snowmobile community, the ski community, the snowboard community, we're all passionate about public lands and climate change, and going at each other's throats for these small details is kind of a waste of time when we could be so much stronger and such a more powerful, cohesive unit. I think it starts by building those bridges.
Chris,
What's that?
it's a real tractor right there.
Real tractor running on fossil fuels.
Burning gas.
Yeah, burning gas.
Nice. Sick to be here and see the farm. How do you go from being like a professional skier to like a pretty full-on farmer here?
When you go down the like climate change, trying to curb your footprint, you kind of decide where you can and can't make a difference. So having a little farm in Revelstoke is like definitely not like solving any of the world's problems, but it's what we can do. Like I know for me, like every time I step on a plane or a helicopter or on a snowmobile, I'm very conscientious of the fact that I'm burning carbon and I want to make the most out of that day or that trip.
Well, I think it's like our responsibility as athletes. Like, what do? We inspire people, and like inspiring people to be mindful about the way they're living their lives is huge. You know, I also agree that there's things we can do as individuals that have a huge change, and I just think that those things also include making it the cultural norm and mandate in our, you know, community to like do the big scary stuff, like engage with political systems and not, I'm not just talking about federal, I'm talking about like your local communities and like looking at what systems we touch and looking at what power levers we touch and activating on them. And I feel like when we put the blame all on our shoulders as individuals, it makes it really hard to move and unite. And that's why we're all in this place of like feeling guilty, feeling shame. We're trying to figure out how to be perfect. And since we can't be perfect, then we're not going to engage.
But if we're not going to change, who's going to change? A lot of what we do is like fly here for a storm, fly there for a storm, jump over here into a helicopter. And it's like, this is the lifestyle that we're promoting, and I'm seeing more and more people gravitate towards that aren't professionals. Like, what we're doing is not working, and so if we're not willing to change any of our practices, why should anybody else do it?
Yeah, if we're not going to change, who is? He's right. We all have to change. But I don't know if we have to change in the ways that he like thinks we have to change. I get defensive about this. I get defensive about the subject, about my role in it. The judgment is the problem.
Which do you recognize you're kind of doing too right now?
Totally. I am judging someone like Chris, who's dedicated his life to being an organic farmer. I am pointing a finger at him, and in my doing so, I am also being complicit with what the fossil fuel industry wants. They want us to keep fighting amongst each other.
In the 1970s, there was an ad called the Crying Indian campaign, and that was designed by the fossil fuel industry. There was suddenly plastic everywhere, and the industry said, look, we gotta make sure we don't get blamed for it. So the Crying Indian campaign made people feel responsible for litter.
People start pollution, people can stop it.
And it was very effective in blaming the public, and then the fossil fuel industry later picked up on that with the carbon footprint.
The idea of a carbon footprint is so ingrained in our culture now. We talk about our carbon footprints. We talk about reducing our carbon footprints. It was actually popularized by BP, British Petroleum, in order to shift the narrative, to shift the story, and to shift attention away from the fossil fuel industry and everything they had done to confuse us about the facts and to block climate action, and instead to create a story, a narrative in which we were the problem. It was our fault because we all had too heavy a carbon footprint. A tremendous amount of the recent disinformation that we've faced in this space is really misdirection. It's to distract attention from the role of the fossil fuel industry as the industry that created this problem, that sustains the problem, and that blocks action through lobbying on Capitol Hill and elsewhere, and make you feel like, oh, it's your fault, and then get us arguing about, well, should we or should we not eat hamburgers?
we're entrenched in this idea of like, if we're like limiting fossil fuels, like Americans feel like, oh, that means I can't go drive my trailer to go camping, or I can't drive my truck. And I think that those people should be pissed that to do those things, we have to do it this one way through using fossil fuels. That pisses me off. I think that a lot of us would like to make different choices if there weren't things that were roadblocking that process from happening.
All my friends that fish, all my friends that hunt. Actually, my friends that hunt are probably the most progressive in terms of being climate activists, but somehow we're still like not speaking the same language. Like snowboarders and hunters, we're trying to get to the same end goal, but we're trying to take a different roadmap to get there. Everything already is in jeopardy. Our livelihoods are in jeopardy. And so what is it going to take for us to become unified? That's the magic question.
The biggest thing for me is the respect for the planet. And as humans, I feel like, especially as Europeans and North Americans, we feel like we own everything and, you know, we created everything. And it's like, no, this earth is a gift to us and we're so lucky to have it.
I truly believe the more connected we can be to the outdoors, the more motivated we're going to be to preserve it. And nature is the common thread between all of us living on this planet Earth.
Maybe there'll be someone out there who says something critical of you because you used a snowmobile to get to a mountain, and you can say, okay, I know that, you know, my use of a snowmobile is actually a very small part of my carbon footprint, and I also know that my carbon footprint is not actually the real issue, right? The real issue is the structural change that we need.
So what is individual action versus systemic action? What does systemic action look like?
Yeah, I mean, we simply can't get to where we need to go without systemic change. And when I'm saying systemic change, this is our energy infrastructure, our transportation standards, our financial systems, even building codes need to change. And all these things together, what build a resilient future, it's part of how we achieve social justice, is by creating solutions that everyone has access to, which are these big systemic solutions.
Protect Our Winters' mission is to unify and mobilize outdoor lovers to act on climate.
Protect Our Winters has this concept of the outdoor state, which is really interesting. It's if you rounded up all the people in the US that participate in outdoor sports, you get a number of around 50 million people. And if you were to get those people to all unify around anything, that is the most powerful group of people in the United States. That's a powerful group of people in the world.
It's a pretty powerful force such that it could actually counter this, immense cohesion that the fossil fuel industry has, to the extent that they lose, what we say in academic jargon is their social license to operate.
If you contrast that with the NRA, there's about 3 million really active NRA members. And that is why we don't have real gun policies, because of 3 million people in the right states in this country. So if we could mobilize just a portion of the outdoor state, we could really move the needle on having climate champions in office and getting the policy that is needed.
Policy helps coordinate the actions of lots and lots of people and really helps us focus on those actions that not just people but businesses can engage in.
An example would be this Inflation Reduction Act. Since the Inflation Reduction Act, that's the biggest climate policy ever passed, there's been over $500 billion spent on clean energy infrastructure. It's cheaper to get power from the sun or wind than it is from digging it up from the ground, and it employs way more people.
It's not about doing less, it's about doing more.
It's about us using our individual voices and the power that goes along with that to push the system, to create different options for us to choose from.
So the outdoor industry is this giant, untapped resource. I mean, this is this big opportunity to move an entire constituency that, if tapped, could swing elections.
We can all agree that we have not done our best. You know, we have not created a system that has foresight and long-term and taking care of our future of resources and people in mind. We have to change the system.
I get asked all the time, well, what are you doing personally? I say, well, I have done a lot of things personally. You know, the electricity in my house is almost entirely now from solar panels on my roof. But here's the thing. I can change my light bulbs, but I can't change my electricity grid. For that, I have to become politically active.
You need to commit yourself to making civic engagement like part of what you do. You tune your skis and you care about the environment by knowing what's going on in your system. Find your power lever, pull it.
What's missing in America is citizenship. If you think of yourself as insufficiently moral to advocate, you've taken yourself out of the civic process, and that's exactly what the fossil fuel industry wants you to do.
Someone might say, well, skiing is frivolous. You don't have to ski. I have to drive my car to work. I don't have a choice. There's no public transportation where I live, but you don't have to ski. Well, on some level, that's true. But on another level, it's kind of missing the point. Because why are we doing all this work? We're not doing all this work so we can be miserable. We're doing all this work to preserve the beauty of nature, the fun of being outdoors. That's the whole point. We're fighting to protect something great that is being damaged by people whose only real consideration is profit. So that doesn't make us hypocrites. This world is a very beautiful place because we can go out into nature and we can have fun and we can experience joy.
The use of the term hypocrite is a way to disempower citizens. That's what it does. And when you disempower citizens, you get to enable the status quo.
At the end of the day, we're just fighting for clean air, clean water, and a planet that future generations can live on. And that's on the ballot. Every election, it's on the ballot at your town election, your state election, and your federal election.
If you care about the environment, this life, these places, we want you on our team. And it doesn't matter if you like motorsports or skiing, snowboarding, hunting, anything. You know, we're all in this together.
300 years of industrialization created this problem. So it's not your fault that we are in the place we are today. But going forward, if you do nothing, then it starts to become your fault.